Good morning to everyone at today's public hearing of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission. My name is Christopher Lehman. I am the chairperson of the commission. Our commission is established under Law 252 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors. Under Article 22, paragraph 13 of that law, it provides that this commission will assess candidates for the Superior Council of Prosecutors Board of Selection and Evaluation, according to the procedures and criteria regulated by Law Number 26 of 2022 on the measures related to the selection of candidates for the positions of members in self-administration bodies of the prosecutors. The hearing is being conducted under the Commission's Rules of Procedures for Evaluations under Law Number 26. The subject of today's hearing is Ghenadie Pîrlii, candidate for the Superior Council of Prosecutors Selection and Evaluation Board. Mr. Pîrlii, good morning and welcome to the hearing. I'm joined by my colleagues, the other commissioners. From my far right, Nadezhda Hryptievsky. On my immediate right, Irmantas Mikilonis. On my far left, Cornel Lebedinsky. And on my immediate left is Saskia de Vries. The commission is also assisted by members of our secretariat. The hearing is public and open to members of the media. The hearing will be conducted with interpretation into English and Romanian. And to assist that process, I would ask that everyone speak slowly and clearly. The proceedings are being recorded. The recordings of the hearing will be available online at the Commission's website within 3 days. That website is www.vettingmd.org. Mr. Pîrlii, during the hearing, one or more members of the Commission may ask you questions. Please answer them truthfully and completely. Your explanations are important to the Commission in evaluating your ethical and financial integrity. In formulating our questions, we take into account your privacy and, where required and possible, privacy of your family members and close persons. So we will leave out unnecessary details with regard to ID numbers, bank account numbers, street addresses, and the like, and we would ask you to do the same. At the end of the hearing, you'll be given an opportunity to make a closing statement. I'll start briefly by reviewing the evaluation process for Mr. Pîrlii. The Commission initiated its evaluation on 22nd of December 2023 by notifying you by email and asking you to complete the 5-year declaration and the ethics questionnaire. You returned the completed questionnaire and declarations on the 28th of December 2023. As part of our ethical and financial integrity evaluation, the Commission has also obtained information from a number of other sources. For example, the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, other public institutions, banks, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses information it obtains from those sources for its relevance and reliability. The Commission sent you 3 rounds of questions on the 9th of April, 2024, on the 3rd of May, and on the 29th of May, all of which you responded to. On the 29th of May, 2024, the Commission invited you to attend today's hearing. At that time, we notified you of the specific topics that would be addressed at the hearing today. Mr. Pîrlii, again, thank you for appearing today, and I will begin with a few questions to you. Again, I ask that you respond in a complete and truthful manner. The first of my questions is if you wish to make any additions or corrections to the materials that you've already submitted to the Commission.
First of all, I would like to say good morning. I have to acknowledge that I am a little bit nervous, and I hope that that'll not be the case for the rest of the hearing. The information that I've provided to the Commission is complete. There's nothing for me to add.
And let me just put you at your ease. We have no rush today. Feel free to stop, collect your thoughts at any time. It's not a race, so please have a drink of water and relax. My second question to you is, I just want to clarify that the answers provided to you in your provided by you in the 5-year declaration and the ethics questionnaire in December of 2023, are those still accurate as of today?
Certainly they are accurate to this day, and which is also true for all the information that I've shared with the Commission as far as my candidacy is concerned.
Thank you. I am going to pass the floor to my colleague, Ms. Sriptievski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Domnul Pîrlii, bună ziua.
Good morning, Mr. Pîrlii. I will be asking the questions in Romanian, so now you don't need the headset anymore. The first issue that I would like to address, and with regards to which we have a number of questions, has to do with the apartment of your father-in-law in Chișinău municipality. As for the street, I will call it Street A to avoid giving out the names of addresses. The first question actually has to do with the apartment that is owned by you and your wife, 58.6 square meters in Chișinău on a different street. We'll call that the V Street, and that belongs to you as per the 2002 agreement. Is that correct? Can you explain if this is your current domicile? Is it there where you live now, in that apartment? Do you mean? So, currently, the Pîrlii family, and I mean all the members, we are domiciled and have the right of habitation on the A Street, in that apartment on the A Street. Until when did you live on the V Street, on the V Street? Since 2018, in 2018, we had the right of habitation on the A Street. That's when we started having that right, starting 2018. Is it on that year that the apartment on V Street was rented out? Yes, 2018, 2019, precisely. So when we moved to the A Street apartment, that other apartment, as per the agreement, I've already provided the agreement in the first round of questions, so that apartment, as per the agreement, was rented out. So you are renting out that apartment as per the rental agreement that you've provided to us, 1,000 lei a month. Is that right? Yes. And is it still being rented out? No, not now. According to the agreement, it was rented out as per the agreement, I think until the end of 2019, that's what the terms were. And by the end of 2019, it was being rented out on the basis of those same terms that were applicable to 2018. Is that correct? Yes, as per the agreement. So you submitted to the Commission an agreement, a rental agreement signed on the 1st of August 2019 for a period of 6 months, with the possibility to re-enter into another agreement, so it was not automatically to be extended. Well, as far as I can recall now, that was a 1-year agreement. Well, actually, my wife mostly handled that, because the person who lived there, who stayed there, was an acquaintance of my wife. Is it possible to have that you had 2 agreements? I am knowledgeable of that contract that I've shared with you. But do you have the possibility, after the hearing, to look into this and clarify the matter? I would like just to ask you about it, because there is some uncertainty. According to the State Tax Service, you've registered and you've submitted to the Commission an agreement of the 2nd of August 2018, and in the annual declaration, you reported income on the basis of that agreement for 2018. So you reported 6,000 lei gained out of that contract. But as for what came next, we did not find in your other declarations any funds gained from the rental of that apartment. So that's why we wondered as to why. Well, that's because there was no money earned. If there would have been any money from that rental arrangement, that would have been declared, but there was no money. But the agreement you showed us is dated the 1st of August, 2019. When I was getting ready for the first round of questions, as I can see, there's item 14. I've actually sought information from the tax authorities, and they showed me a statement, a confirmation of the fact that the contract was registered and the period for which it was paid. Well, then we'll ask you some follow-up questions, because this is something where we still lack clarity. You are saying now that it is only for 2018 that you've earned some income on the basis of renting that apartment out, so that's why you've declared it only for 2018? Or is it that you want to have another look at it? I would rather clarify this later. Let's then move on to another block of questions, and specifically with regards to the 86.8 square meters apartment that was purchased actually by your parents-in-law according to an investment contract of the 28th of December 2013. Is that correct? In your 2021 and 2022 declarations, in those declarations, you indicated that your wife had the right of habitation in that apartment. Is that correct? Yes, the entire family. Actually, I meant the entire family. Now, this is a question that I would like to have more clarity about, because when it comes to your domicile, your residence, your domicile, that's the V Street. And in the declaration, it says that only your wife has the right of habitation. So it wasn't really clear for us whether you lived together or separately. Could you clarify as to why you declared the information like that? Actually, the matter regarding the right of habitation, as I've already explained in the round of questions, that appeared only when this was publicized in the media, when it came to matters related to the right of habitation. So I personally thought about it, and I thought it was not necessary for us, not required for us to declare any right of habitation, and that until that high-profile case became known in the media. And then I decided to report it like that to be compliant with the requirements. What is more, when I've also filed the Declaration of Assets and Personal Interests, I sought clarifications with the NIA regarding this matter. And you declared only the right of the wife. Is that what the NIA told you to do? Well, that was also for myself, too. I also have the right of habitation there. I think that was the case. But what we've seen, there's only a mention regarding your wife, if we got it right in the declaration. But can you tell us precisely, when is it that you moved into that apartment on the A Street? As far as I can remember, we moved into the A Street apartment. Well, actually, let me tell you, there's a bigger story behind it. After that apartment was bought, my mother-in-law lived there. She was in Chisinau municipality at that time. And then of late, or let's say, well, she passed away in November. So in late 2016, throughout 2016, until practically the end of it, she had an incurable disease and she needed support. She needed help. So my wife would practically spend most of her time there in that apartment. And then my sister-in-law, some other relatives would also visit her to help out. After my mother-in-law passed away, a couple of years later, a little bit more than a year later, we moved in to that A Street apartment. Now, the V Street apartment, let's go over that again. You have rented it out in August 2018. After we left, when we left that apartment, we moved into the other one. I would like to also clarify that according to the explanations I provided during the rounds of questions, we've also referred to those two parking lots that were purchased. They were purchased by the Pîrlii family, and that's why there were issues with the V apartment because it's on Street G, and there's a big issue when it comes to parking. So we decided to move out there because the parking lots had already been purchased, and it was more convenient, comfortable for us as a family. We'll go back to that. We'll clarify those matters too. But can you remember this apartment on the V Street where you have parking issues? For how long have you been renting it out? That apartment was rented out right until, as far as I can remember, now I'm not sure I'm precise, I'm accurate, but as far as I can remember, it was until, I think until the pandemic started, I think until the COVID pandemic started, but the pandemic started in 2020, but up to that moment, it was before COVID pandemic, the COVID pandemic started. So until 2019, they were still being rented out. I will look into that again. I provided the agreement and I've sought explanations from my wife, and she said that everything was done as per the agreement and that all the taxes had been paid. So after the pandemic started, how was that apartment being used? After the pandemic started, as I've explained, there was a very good acquaintance of my wife staying there. There was a lady, a woman. She had a child. And, I mean, she had some family issues and she had to come to Chișinău. And that's when issues started about the COVID pandemic and all of that situation. So my wife decided to let her stay there as long as she paid the utilities, I think. I can't remember very well, but she was allowed to live there in that apartment until the pandemic goes away, or in that period of time. She had nowhere to go, and there was the quarantine situation. She had a very young child who was going to school, so it just was an act of kindness. I remember that my wife actually said, look, let's do this. I think we should help this person. All the more so since they were acquaintances for a while now. Does that woman still live there? Not anymore. For how long has she stayed there? Until what year? I think that until, well, maybe until February. I would have to look back into that. What about the apartment? The apartment is, well, nobody's staying there right now. In the written communication with the Commission, you have indicated that for that apartment on A Street, the installments had all been paid to buy the apartment throughout 2013, 2015, and that the installments had been paid by your father-in-law and mother-in-law. Is that correct? Yes. In the second round of questions, question 5, you've also explained and clarified that the sources of funds to pay for this apartment, so that was practically their own income and the savings that they had accumulated on the basis of the income earned by them. Is that right? Yes. Have you personally, or has your wife contributed to the procurement of that apartment? No. I mean, the mortgage agreement, so our contribution was only when my mother-in-law was doing the renovations works, remodeling the apartment. So that's when my wife would always be there helping her, driving her around, for instance. What about your financial contributions? Did you contribute in any way to the renovations in that apartment? As far as I know, not. I personally know that we didn't contribute financially. To the price, to paying for the mortgage agreement, the Pîrlii family paid nothing for the mortgage agreement, nothing at all. And they've only paid for it from the money of the Musteață family. That's who paid for the apartment, only by the Musteață family. So you made no investments in this apartment since 2016 onwards? We did not make investments into it, and I would like to explain why. Because the idea, initially, when that apartment was bought, the idea was for my parents-in-law to move to Chișinău, to stay there. So that's why when the renovations were required, and all of those expenses were covered by my in-laws. Well, we have some figures. It was quite complicated to get them all together. We might not have been able to send everything to you, and we'll have some follow-up questions. According to the preliminary calculations, there's a substantial difference between income and those costs. But we will get back to you and ask some follow-up questions. So what was the difference about the income of your parents-in-law and the expenses they've incurred in that period of time to pay for this asset? That's the difference we're talking about. You've already addressed a matter, those two parking lots. And a third that we also see in the cadastre is something like a depository space, a storage space. Yes. Your wife has purchased these in 2018, is that correct? Yes. That's when the agreement was concluded in 2018, but they had been booked in advance earlier than that. They had been, was it your wife? No, my parents-in-law did. When they bought the apartment, they had the idea to, or maybe this is what you might have meant in your earlier questions. When the apartment was bought, they also had in mind having a parking space. So they sort of made a reservation. They booked those spaces. They had an agreement regarding that. So we decided to use that. The mother-in-law had passed away in the meantime, so we thought we'd invest in those parking lots. So your wife bought both of them. Well, formally there was a sales and purchase agreement, but they were actually bought with funds of the Pîrlii family. That is your money and your wife's money. Yes. And you reported that in your 2020 annual declaration. Is that correct? And can you explain why? When I was filling in the 2019 declaration, at that time, considering that they had not been registered yet at that time with the Public Services Agency, they were not in the register of real estate. That's why we thought that as soon as they're registered, once they are registered, that's when I will declare them in the declarations. But in the next year, in 2020 that is, when I filled in the declaration, at that time I had attended a workshop, and all of these details and questions, all of these matters and subtleties regarding the declaration situation were explained. And at the workshop I've actually asked them how we should address a situation like this, and they said, regardless, you need to declare everything, even if it's not registered with the Public Services Agency, so you need to report everything. So I decided to be even more open about my declaration responsibilities. So then you continue declaring it in 2021, 22, 2023, and 24? Yes. I would like to ask my colleagues if they have any questions.
We've been going very rapidly through this, and there were a few things I wanted to clarify. You mentioned with regards to the apartment on V Street that your wife had a friend staying there basically from around the start of the pandemic, so that would be early 2020?
As per the agreement, well, there was a rental agreement that was until the pandemic. But after that, we decided to let her just stay there, to have the right to stay there and just pay for utilities after that, after the contract expired, to just pay the utilities and just stay there like that.
So she was the tenant in 2019?
Well, she was living there, like a tenant indeed. She was living there. She was living in that apartment.
Well, now I'm confused. Was she living there in 2019 and paying rent?
That is correct, as per the agreement.
And so she continued to live there after the pandemic started?
Yes. Yes.
So after the pandemic started, you stopped charging her rent, or she stopped paying rent?
Nu a achitat. Deci doar
That is correct. She was not paying rent anymore. She would only pay for utilities.
cheltuieli care trebuiau
There were
să-
these expenses that somebody had that otherwise should have been covered by the Pîrlii family.
Understood. And then you said that she stayed until February, but I didn't get a year. Do you know, are you talking about 2023 or 2022?
Până în februarie 2020, da, 2023.
2023 till February 2023.
And then I just would like to clarify, when did you move into the apartment on A Street?
Deci în apartamentul pe strada Ani am
On the A Street apartment, so we moved into the A Street apartment
pe parcursul anul 2018.
at some point in 2018. I can't remember when exactly, but it was before we rented out the apartment, but in 2018. I can't remember now the month exactly, but certainly in 2018.
Okay, so you and your wife have been living in the A Street apartment since 2018,
Exact.
Precisely.
and that's your current residence.
Exact. Da, exact.
Precisely, yes.
Wanted to clarify this sequence of events. Thank you. Anyone else on this subject? Oh, Ermontes, sorry.
My question is regarding apartment on V Street. Could you clarify to the Commission who use this apartment currently now?
Nu, acum nu ești nimeni.
Nobody is staying there at this moment in time. Nobody is staying there at this moment in time. There's nobody there.
Do you aware who cover expenses regarding this apartment on V Street?
La moment le achită deci cheltuielile pentru servicii.
Currently, there are some utility services that my wife pays, the Pîrlii family, in other words. My wife is usually the one handling these matters. If I may clarify something, thank you. With regards to this period of time, so that rental agreement with that acquaintance, you've mentioned it was for 2018, 2019, and was supposed to be till the end of 2019, is that right? Yes, as far as I can remember. You stated that during the pandemic you wanted to make this act of kindness and that you were not charging rent. But in Moldova, the first case of COVID-19 was registered in March 2020. So I'd like to ask you, from the 1st of January 2020 and until the pandemic started in Moldova, what were the terms under which that acquaintance was staying there? Were the same terms as for 2018, 2019, or did you decide with the beginning of the 2020 to not charge her anything? When the contract expired, she paid the amounts that were due. I remember that my wife came and she said, look, the contract period is running out, and look, what should we do? This person is in a very complicated situation, so will we let her live here, continue to live here, given that she also has a young child? She was a single mother, so she said, let's let her stay there. She'd only pay the utilities and some other expense that has to do with the maintenance of the apartment. So that's the sort of the discussion we had. If we were to rent that apartment out to other tenants, to other people, well, first of all, this person, for as long as she stayed, she took very good care of that apartment. It was always clean, and that matters a lot. So taking care of the apartment, that was important. And then we had the idea that if we were to rent this out to students in order to have some income from that. When students leave, usually you know what things are like in Moldova. You need to do again renovation works and have greater expenses than what you've earned out of renting the apartment out to students. So we decided to sort of compensate things, or we would rent it out to her, but she was taking very good care of the apartment. And as far as I can remember, there was even a situation that, well, something happened, with the neighbors from above it. Because anyway, there's some issues with the apartment, and she sorted things out. So we were really happy with her as a tenant. She was very diligent, and she had a very amicable, friendly relationship with my wife. Thank you for your answer. I just wanted to clarify when you decided to move from one arrangement to another, where she would initially pay rent, but then she stopped paying rent, but only pay utilities. So not starting March 2020, but starting January 2020. That is right, when the agreement expired, when the period expired. And I consented to that because my wife brought this up with me. And so we've decided that when this contract is finished, is completed, then we won't have another one drafted. The next matter has to do with the four questions, with the four cars, with the four cars. So with regards to each, your wife has the right of usufruct. According to the information available to the Commission, since 2008 onwards, your wife has had the right of usufruct for four cars: a Škoda Superb, registered as owned between 16 September 2014 and to this day, and I would like us to clarify this. Is this information accurate? It is accurate. And then a Toyota RAV4, model year 2011. She's had the right of possession of ownership since until the 5th of August 2017, and starting with the 8th of December 2014. And then the Hyundai Santa Fe of 2014, she's had the rights over it since 29th of July 2017 till the 6th of March 2018. And the Hyundai Santa Fe, model year 2017, registered in her possession since the 23rd of March 2018 to this day. So did I get all of these right?
Could you clarify if the Škoda Superb was purchased by your father-in-law from his own funds, or did you also contribute your wife to the purchase of this car? When this car was purchased, so after I received the round of questions, I discussed this with my father-in-law, Mr. Nicolae Mustață. Based on his explanations, he mentioned that this car was purchased from his own funds. From what he recalls, because we later discussed about this, some funds were borrowed from someone else, but this was an amount that was not significant. Most of the expenses were incurred by him. So this car was purchased from Germany by a very good friend of my father-in-law. They've known each other for many years, and he does this. He imports cars from abroad, from Germany, from the Netherlands, to the Republic of Moldova. And at that point, my father-in-law was looking for a car, and the price was very good, and the state of the car was very good. The person imported it to the Republic of Moldova and registered it here and did all the customs procedures. And I'll tell you in the right consecutivity. So after this car was imported in the Republic of Moldova, in that period, the Pîrlii family had a Mercedes 350 car, and that car was from 1995.
respectiv el avea și un consum mai mare
And the
și
consumption was higher, and because it was in use for a long time, it had some defections. So it would get out of order very often, so it would cause us problems.
tatăl, socrul, deci odată ce a făcut
And
achiziționarea respectivă,
after my father-in-law purchased this, well, he used to have another car, the Citroen. Yes, the Citroen. And he told us, until you fix the car, you can use this car. I mean the Skoda. And we had the usufruct contract on my wife's name. Why did he do this? Maybe it was not necessary, but from what I recall, in 2014, we wanted to leave to Romania, and in order to go abroad, you needed to have this permit. But this car used to be used by Mr. Musteață also. So this is where I'd like to have some clarifications. From what I understand, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, your father-in-law lived all his life in Soroca. He would come periodically to Chișinău when the mother-in-law was living here. Is that correct? So we would go to Soroca on Fridays, or he would come to Chișinău on Fridays. And in 2014, you and your wife were living in Chișinău or in Orhei? No, not in Orhei. Yes, in Chișinău. This is quite a long distance between Chișinău and Soroca. So your wife was using the car, or how did they split the car? I was saying that he would use it when he would come to Chișinău because the Citroen is also bigger. And when he came to Chișinău, it was more comfortable for him to use the Skoda. Mostly this car was used since 2015, May 2015. Well, since May it was mostly used by myself, and I will tell you why. This is from 2015. Because later you will probably mention the Toyota RAV4, and you'll understand. Please explain, because this is new information, the fact that you are using this car since 2015. This is not new information. It was used by the Pîrlii family. I didn't see anywhere the information that you are using it. How often are you using it since 2015? To go to work or at home? So for when I had to go in the country for work, you also have a VAZ. Yes, this was given by myself based on a power of attorney. You can see that even the insurance was not made. So I gave it to someone else based on a power of attorney. That was the procedure before then. So I gave it to a person from Soroca because the car was in a very poor state. Did you declare the use of this car anywhere? I indicated it in the declaration also only because when I accessed the database on my properties, I saw that this car was still in my name. This was yes, but it is not used by me anymore. It is in a village. But did you mention the use of Skoda in any declarations? Yes, in all declarations. You mentioned that you are using this car. You also have the right of usufruct. Yes, according to the contract. So you have this contract for comodatum. Yes, myself and my wife do. The issue was that we needed this contract of comodatum in order to go abroad when we traveled. I'm discussing about the annual declarations to the NIA. It was declared in all declarations. You didn't mention this. You consider it wasn't necessary, but you have been using it since 2015, correct? Yes, thank you. We have clarified this aspect. We will move on to the next one. The other 3 cars that your car is using and for which you have the right of property since 2014, all 3 were purchased by yourself. Is that correct? Yes, correct. By your mother, sorry. Did your mother buy these cars from their own funds, or did you or someone else contribute to the purchase? When they were purchased, you mentioned there were 3 cars. Actually, it was 1 car that was sold. Then, using these funds, we bought the second. So we had the primary investment. So if we would take it in chronological order, then we have the Toyota. The Toyota was purchased by my mother, but it was purchased at the suggestion of my sister. Well, my sister is a lawyer, and one of her clients had a case. I don't know details about this, but the person really needed money, and he asked my sister whether they would like to purchase this car, Toyota RAV4. And they discussed this in their family and decided that in that moment it was best if my mother bought this because she had some savings. And then the car could be sold because the price was indeed very good. The Mercedes 350 that I sold at a lower price because I had to sell it quickly, and it wasn't in a good shape. So my mother bought this car. It was registered on her name, and from what I learned afterwards, there was a small contribution from my sister. It was not a loan. Well, it was a loan, but without the contract. It was like help from my sister, from the family of my sister. So the family of your sister helped your mother purchase the Toyota, and your wife is using the car. Let me explain. The only person that could support my mother at that point to drive the car was my wife, because my mother and my sister did not have a driver's license. So it was my wife who could drive it. So this is why it was decided, because my wife was helping my mother, and my mother also helped us. At that point, our child was born. My mother would come and help us, and my wife would drive her around because we had a daily interaction between the 2 of them. And besides, we also wanted to go abroad. And this is why we had this contract of comodatum. In order to clarify, the Toyota RAV was purchased in 2014. And the usufruct contract was registered in December 2014. Yes, according to the data that I presented. But at that moment, your wife already had the right to drive the Škoda Superb. How do you explain that she needed another one? So this was a formality. I told you that when the Toyota came into the picture, I started using the Škoda more often, and the Toyota was used by my wife. So my wife had the right of usufruct. This is what I wanted to explain. I see. Let's clarify another aspect. regarding the price. The Toyota RAV4, this model is from 2011. It was purchased by your mother in 2014, so it was 3 years old. It was basically a new car. This is considered a good car. And the price that you said was paid in the written communication based on the declarations from your mother was, you stated, 7,000 euro. Is that correct? I was not involved in the purchase of this car, so I presented all the information based on what my mother, my sister's brother, and my sister's husband and my sisters told me. This was the contract in the amount in the contract. This was the practice in the Republic of Moldova. So there was one amount in the contract. You don't have this contract, and I understand you cannot find it. I've tried, and I went to the Public Services Agency, and they said they don't have it because it was destroyed. So, since you are driving these cars, you can explain us how was it possible to purchase this car in 2014 with 7,000 euro and to be sold in 3 years with 8,000 euros. First of all, this was a gain of 1,000 euro. So this was a good investment. We had some income from the sale of this car. Mr. Pîrlii, from the analysis that I had access to, usually the price of cars decreases by 6% yearly. Maybe I don't have the correct information. It is not often that the price of the car increases over time. Can you explain this? I will explain. When sale is performed, there are persons who have the skills of selling or are lucky. Actually, I don't have this luck. When I purchase something or I sell something, I don't gain a lot. In this case, my daughter's husband was involved in this because he's in this environment of entrepreneurs, and he identified the person who later purchased the Toyota. So the Pîrlii family, to be more explicit, only used this car until the owner decided they wanted to sell it. And then we sold it. We had no income from this. We had no relation to this car. I understand, but it was used by your wife. Yes, it was used. According to the data that the Commission received in 2017, a similar car, this means 3 years later, when you actually sold it, such cars were being sold, well, there were announcements on 999.md for 15,000 euros. Now, in 2024, such cars are sold for 11 or 12,000 euros. How can you explain that this car was purchased in 2014 when it was 3 years old with 7,000 euros? I will answer as an observer. It depends a lot on the car. They are very good cars, they are in a good state. And let's admit hypothetically that there's a Toyota RAV4 that is in perfect state. It can be 15,000. But if you make a research, the car market, you will see such cars with lower prices. Did your car have any technical problems? When we used it, we didn't have any issues. It was in a satisfactory state. It was not perfect, to say. It was not that good in order to have a very high price, but it was good. I see. The next question is related to the Hyundai Santa Fe.
Okay.
I am really sitting here struggling to understand how you could buy a 3-year-old Toyota RIVE for 7,000 euro in 2014. I just don't understand that. Maybe you can explain something about this car or something to convince me, but it just defies reality.
Deci, eu vreau să concretizez.
I would like to mention that I was not the one purchasing it. This is not something that I purchased. We just used this car. The car was identified and purchased by my mother, assisted by her son-in-law. In Moldova, everything is possible. And there are persons who do this. There are cars with defects, or there are persons who really need money, and in order not to take loans, they sell these cars at very low prices. I would like to mention again, the Pîrlii family only used this car for 2 years. We just used it. My mother had some benefits from selling it, but actually we didn't have any profits. I actually regret now that we even used this car.
But your mother doesn't drive a car.
Mama nu conduce mașini.
No, my mother doesn't drive the car, but it was an investment in order to then recover the money. The price was good. This analysis was done by her son-in-law. My mother is an accountant. And after analyzing the situation, they decided that this investment will bring profit. So there was this financial purpose of having some earnings from buying and then selling this car. So you insist that the beneficial owner was your mother, but de facto, the car was used by your wife in most of the time. Yes, she would use it to go around. I apologize. Your family, from what you are saying, did not contribute to the purchase of this car. It was your sister's family that contributed. So the family of your sister used this car during this period. They used the car when it was necessary. For example, my brother-in-law would take the car if they needed. And there were periods when their car broke down, and they used Toyota RAV for a longer period. It was during winter, and this is why they used it. But did they have a comodatum contract? Did your brother-in-law have this? It wasn't necessary because they only used it in the Republic of Moldova. So only your wife would go out abroad. Yes, only we would, the family Pîrlii would go out because we would travel to Romania or Ukraine. Mr. Pîrlii, in 2017, your mother bought another car, a Hyundai Santa Fe. Also, so she bought she sold the Toyota and bought the Hyundai Santa Fe. and the model year was 2014, so the car was also 3 years old. It was purchased for 160,000 lei. That was indicated in the contract, and you confirmed that this is the real amount paid. In 2016, this meant approximately 8,000 euros, a bit less, but let's say 8,000. Do you claim that this is the real price that she paid in 2016?
Reală automobilului, eu nu țin minte, deci eu nu chiar încă o dată vreau să explic.
I would like to explain once again. Based on my work, I don't have time because I was deputy head of the department, and for me to go out for personal affairs during the day, it was very difficult. So I was not involved in signing the contract or when the car was identified. I was just announced that this car will be bought. So I was announced that the Toyota will be sold. And my mother and my brother-in-law did the sale. And then they told me that they identified this car. So this was identified by my mother's son-in-law. And my mother interacts more with my sister's family. Well, actually, we all interact a lot. We have good relationships. And this Hyundai Santa Fe was identified and bought by the son-in-law, Alexandru. He already had a Hyundai Santa Fe, the one that has license plate number. You don't need to mention the license plate number. According to 999.md, in 2024, such cars are sold with 70,500 euros. So there's a difference between 2017 and 2024. Do you have an explanation for this? So once the Pîrlii family was not involved in the purchase, no funds were requested from us. So I found out about the price and I saw the contract when I filled in the declaration of assets. And I entered the information from the contract. And this is when I found out the price of this car. This was in line with the contract. I was not part of the negotiations. I did not see the seller. So since 2017, your wife has the contract of conductum registered for this car. So basically it was given right after it was purchased. Is that correct? I apologize. I want to go back a bit. In the round of questions, I clarified the question regarding the price, and I was told that the real price for Hyundai BQR was 14,000. You mean the one in 2017? The real price was 2014? Yes, it was 14,000. In the contract, at the request of the seller, the price of 160,000 lei was mentioned in the contract. So this amount of 160,000 lei indicated in the contract is not correct. Can you tell us again the price that was paid? 14,000. This was the amount that was given. But you don't have any documents. No, I was not in charge of this. I see. This car was sold in 2018, according to your declarations, for 20,000 euro. Yes, and I already know about this because the person who purchased this car was an acquaintance of my wife.
Anume, deci aici chiar și o chestiune interesantă și o coincidență.
And this is interesting, and it is a coincidence. She wanted to purchase, namely this type of car, and she insisted we sell it. We told her that this is not our car, it is my mother's car, and at that moment she didn't intend to sell it. And can I continue? Just a clarification. In the contract, you mentioned 200,000. Why did you do this? It wasn't me. Your mother-in-law. This was indicated because this was the agreement between the parties. This is how it is done in Moldova. I don't know. Yes, maybe it was. Well, this could have been done in the 90s, 2000s, but this is 2018.
Ca să clarificăm,
In order to clarify,
Hyundai Santa Fe
the next Hyundai Santa Fe, model year 2017, was purchased in 2018. So the car was 1 year old. It was purchased for 400,000 lei, indicated in the contract. This meant approximately 20,000 euro. Is this the price the car was bought for? This Hyundai Santa Fe was the property of the company where my mother's son-in-law is the founder and administrator. This is why they sold this BQR Hyundai. They are in farming, and at that moment he had some good offers for agricultural equipment. And again, they really needed money because at that moment they did not have the necessary funds. This is why they suggested to sell the BQR, so in order not to sell it to someone outside the family at a lower price because they needed money. And this means that the buyer would pay a lower amount. So let's sell the BQR. My mother-in-law sold this and invested in the DNM. And this can be confirmed. And I would like to mention that the situation with the... Please don't tell them... Let's say Santa Fe 2014. So the seller that paid 20,000, they can confirm, and I clarified this. This is the same case with the second Hyundai from 2017. The money was paid in the account of the company, and using this money, they purchased the agricultural equipment.
In the written communication with the Commission, you stated that the purchasing, the procurement of the Hyundai Santa Fe of 2017, you stated that that was determined by the intention of the buyer to buy the car. So there was a higher interest of Madam X. She had a high interest in purchasing that car, and the agreements had been concluded on one and the same day. Is this right? Yes. So can you tell us why did that woman want to buy precisely a car that was 3 years older, so to speak, for 20,000, and then for that 20,000, for that amount, then to let your mother practically spend 20,000 for a car that was newer? It's just that she didn't know how we were going to use the proceeds, the 20,000 that we would be given. So the buyer didn't know how the seller would use the money. But I will try to explain it in simple terms. That person is a very close acquaintance of my wife. She is from the town of Briceni, the district of Briceni. And she's also a business person. She's come to Chișinău, they had met, and she actually really liked the color of the car. The color was brownish, So like chocolate brown, it was quite specific, and there weren't that many cars of that color. I personally didn't like the car color. But, I mean, women have their own likes. So she would always be asking, aren't you selling the car? Aren't you selling the car? And then we said, look, we are not the owners. And the mother doesn't want to sell it now. We've asked her. And she said, right now I don't need, or I don't feel like selling it. But later, when this offer came around for her son-in-law, that they had the need of money to buy the farming equipment, and to avoid selling the car for a small price, the Santa Fe, that was already in possession for more than 1 year So the decision was made to sell the car, to make that sort of a transaction. So practically, this is what happened. Let me see if I can follow the logic of these events. In the information that you provided to the Commission, the Hyundai Santa Fe was purchased in 2018, right? It was for the amount of 20,000, is that correct? The Hyundai Santa Fe, the 2017 Hyundai Santa Fe, that is correct. That is the price in the agreement, that is 400,000. The 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe, out of the written communication, it appears that, well, you've only told the Commission about the 8,000 euros of that price. Today, though, you've stated a different one. But that's what I also said in item 5 in round 2. I've made that clarification I've stated that. I wrote about it. We mean, do you mean the 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe? Did you write to us that it was, well, what was the price of that car, as per your answers? Let me see. Apologies, I didn't, it appears. And it was only 140,000 that I put down as my answer in the rounds. But then later, after that, I've asked around about it. Well, today, you mentioned a new price. Now, this new price that you said was for the 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe, that it had been bought. Well, at the end of the day, how much was paid for it? 8,000 euros or 14,000 euros? Out of what I was told. I mean, it's one thing when you're the owner and you know all the ins and outs, but now I'm only guided by the answers that were provided to me by the mother, her son-in-law, and what my sister told me. The Hyundai, as far as I was told, the price for the Hyundai was about 14,000, around 14,000, I was told. All right, well, let's say that it was 14,000 euros. So, as an impartial observer, do you think this is plausible for a car to be bought for 14,000 and then later to sell it to a close acquaintance for 20,000? Well, I don't see an issue as long as there's no harm, as in if there are no issues, if the parties see or agree on that, and that is all right for them, then I don't see a problem. If that woman said that I have been misled, for instance, but she insisted on it, and she came and she paid the money. These discussions happen not only in my presence or in the presence of my wife, there were other people, some friends, closer circle of friends, and this discussion is known not only by me. Now, one more thing to clarify, please. You've mentioned in the written communication, and you've reiterated today too, that the funds for all of these 3 cars were actually an investment from rolling investment, so to speak. So the 2017 Hyundai Santa Fe, according to your statements, has been purchased using the funds, the proceeds following the sale of the Toyota. But according to the information that the Commission has, the Toyota was sold in August 2017, and the Hyundai Santa Fe, the 2014 one, was bought in June 2017. How could that have worked then, the way you stated? It was sold on the basis of a power of attorney. As far as I was told, I actually tried to to clarify this, but I was just told that there was a power of attorney and the car was handed over. I've actually tried to find documentation with the Public Services Agency, but I was told there was nothing with regards to this, with regards to the sale of the Toyota. What about the powers? Did you notarize? It wasn't me the one who handled this, but those who had this done, did they notarize that power of attorney? Did they go to a notary? Well, I can't tell. The car was, when was the car transferred to the owner? In May. In May, that is before the BQR car was called. You mean the Santa Fe of 2014. So before that, before the 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe was bought, we've given that car away. Understood. Would you like to ask a question now or I guess later? Give me a second. I would like us to only clarify a couple more issues. As for your father-in-law, he purchased the Škoda in 2014. And was it being used by your wife in 2014? That is correct. I too would use it every now and then. So the Yuri usage, yes, but I was actually driving it too, and she would drive it as well. It was not a problem as to who was driving it. It was the car of the family. Your father-in-law, did he use the Škoda? Yes, he's also used it. He also drove it when he would come to Chisinau or was the car in Soroka. There were periods of time when the car would be for a couple of weeks in Soroka, for instance, or would come in winter. We'd use the BQR car. But in winter, actually, the BQR car was in Soroka. So we wouldn't always use them constantly. Since 2014, December onwards, when the Toyota RAV4 was purchased by your mother and when your wife's right of use was registered, was your car using the Toyota? Yes. Did your mother ever use the Toyota or the 2014, 2017 Santa Fe cars? Well, she doesn't have a license, a driver's license. But every time she'd say, Ina, tomorrow morning we need to go to Bricheni or to Aneninoi or somewhere else. So my wife, having had time, she has plenty of available time to help my mother out. So she'd say, I can come pick you up tomorrow at 1, for instance. So at 1 she'd pick her up, my mother and me, and they would go anywhere they needed to go. So what members of your family were using these 3 cars? So the son-in-law, Alexandru, was using the cars. If one of his cars would break down or if there's an issue with other cars, his business is in the village of Kalfa, the district of Aneninoi. So he'd always have to drive around to and fro. And your mother lives in Chisinau, is that correct? Yes. But I mean the son-in-law, somebody from the family, you asked. So the son-in-law was using this car. I mean, when I say this car, I mean the BQR car and the Toyota and the Santa Fe as well. And the grandchild also. Is there a comodatum agreement, like a loan for use agreement? Only on my wife. And regarding this sort of an agreement, the comodatum or loan for use agreement, this had to be only entered into only for us to be able to drive outside of the country. Couldn't you have driven the Škoda car? We could have as well. We could use that as well. But first of all, speaking of winter time, looking at the timeline when the Toyota RAV4 was purchased, for instance, right? So there was a period of time, I think in 2015, in winter, we had the intention to travel to Romania. So that's why the agreement was concluded. It was only a formality. I didn't need actually really to have it. The Škoda would have been enough. But then we thought, look, this is a bigger car, a crossover car, so it might be better to use that car, to drive that car. It was safer not to be blocked in the snowbanks. So it was just a formality. Thank you.
întrebați acum că eu vreau să trec la...
If you have a question regarding this matter now, please do ask it, because I want to move to another part. Well, just to clarify certain matters, for the Commission, I would like to ask you the following question. So, the RAV4 Toyota was paid for from your mother's money, well, family money, it was family money, the family of your sister and your mother, all right. So, after this car was sold, who were the beneficiaries of the proceeds was your mother and your sister's family. Right. Now, the first Santa Fe, the 2014 Santa Fe, that was paid for using money of your mother and money of your sister's family. Correct. Registered in the name of your mother. Your mother was registered as the owner. Correct. When it was sold, the proceeds went again to both parties. The Santa Fe, the next Santa Fe, the second Santa Fe, the one that was purchased in 2018, you've told the Commission that, if we got it right, that it was registered as belonging to the company of your brother-in-law. Well, that car was purchased by the limited liability company, that is the company that the son-in-law of my mother is the manager of. So that car was purchased in 2017. It's just now that I've looked at the contracts, and it's precisely because I had the documents that I was able to know these details. So that car was purchased from a leasing company, so it was on the basis of a leasing arrangement. And I've asked him, my brother-in-law, and he confirmed that all the payments had been made by the company, from the limited liability company. And then, even speaking of the sale, if you were to follow the logic of events, the sale of this car, and I mean the money that came out of that went to the company of the son-in-law, to the family of the sister. The money went to the company, the founder of which the brother-in-law is. So the money was, at the end of the day, used for their needs, not for the needs of the family of Pîrlii. So the proceeds out of the sale of the 2014 Santa Fe, and from the... Let's take this one step at a time. There was money earned out of the sale of the 2014 Santa Fe. So that money went to the company, to the LLC of the son-in-law of my mother, right? Can you explain now how the money of your mother appeared then on the account of a company? The car was sold as per the sales and purchase agreement between the limited liability company and... But did they sell it to the LLC? The LLC sold it to my mother. There is an agreement. But we're speaking about the 2014, not the 2017 Santa Fe. We are yet to get to the 2017 car. So, the 2014 car, the car bought in 2014, who got the proceeds out of the sale of the car? Those proceeds were invested into... No, who was the beneficiary of that? The mother. So the mother took the money from the buyer on that same day when the transaction was carried out. She got the money. Okay, so then all the money went to your mother following the sale of that car. Can you say again, what was the amount that the car was sold for? That car was sold for, the actual amount, 20,000 euros. That's what went to your mother. Yes. All right. Now I'm done with this car. I will move on now to that agreement that there is a 2017 agreement on. So the 2017 car. You stated that your mother contributed to the procurement of that car. The procurement was in 2018. Is that correct? The amount that was collected from the sale of the 2014 Santa Fe, so that money was redirected, so to speak, or that money was used to pay for the 2017 Santa Fe. Right. But the car is registered as owned by the LLC, owned by your brother-in-law. At the time of the sale of the Santa Fe car, the 2017 car, it was property of the LLC. The car was owned by the LLC. The administrator of the LLC is the son-in-law, and he's the founder of the LLC. He sold the car to my mother. So the mother was the buyer, the LLC was the seller. So in this train of thought, it's the money the money has been invested in the company. I would like to say that the Pîrlii family got nothing out of that. It did not earn anything at all from the purchase and sale of these cars. What is the fate of this car currently? Well, we've had discussion now, given the evaluation. My mother intends to sell it. We didn't give it enough thought. I mean, we are thinking of ending this loan for use relationship. It's only making us trouble. But currently, the mother is the owner, and she even has the intention to sell that car. But who is actually using the car? This car is being currently used, well, at this day, for instance, today, used by my son, for instance. Yesterday, my wife, and then the son of my sister the other day has also used it. So we share it. It's not a problem. It is not my car, so I can have no say in deciding who should be using it. Now, with regards to the first cars, the other cars, the RAV4 and the 2014 Santa Fe, if we were to speak in percentages, what would your appreciation be? As in, what part of the time the RAV4 would it be used by your family? What part of the time would it be used by the family of your brother-in-law? I mean, for instance, 60% of the time we would use it, for instance. Well, actually, that's exactly what I wanted to say. About 60% of the time, but not on a permanent basis. It was not all the time the same. Sometimes the car for 2-3 weeks out of a month, that car would be used by the brother-in-law or the sister. She's a lawyer, and there was a time back then when she didn't have a license, a driver's license. So she had a driver, someone who would drive her around. So if she had to travel somewhere farther away, Criuleni, Călăraș, or other places, she'd be taken there. She would just tell my wife, for instance, look, I need the car tomorrow, so Ina, have nothing scheduled for that car tomorrow, because I will need it tomorrow, for instance, and then the driver would come along, take the car, and take my sister to wherever she needed to go. And the last question to clarify, who was paying for the maintenance of the car? There was insurance that was supposed to be paid, and then fuels, washing it, like the day-to-day maintenance expenses. So please provide an answer to that. I will take them one by one. You mean there's 4 or 5 matters that you've addressed? Well, practically everything that I said. As regards the Škoda, I remember that for a while I was paying, because I said the car was good. I would also pay the casco insurance. Since I was using this car now and then, we thought it's best to pay for this insurance so as to avoid big problems. But now going to these 4 cars in the name of my mother, the insurance, the technical vehicle fitness tests, even these were being paid by my wife. So my wife would go and do this and handle this, but she would also use the car more often. That's what it's like. Even she would handle all the other changing the necessary technical issues, or like addressing technical issues with the car. Should take care of that.
I'll continue with the questioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pîrlii. It is my understanding that you would like to make certain clarifications. Over to you. You've asked me about the time until which we use the Toyota RAV4 car, because it appears that there's a discrepancy. Here's the sales and purchase agreement that I've presented. It's in the case file, item 6 of the first round of questions. So here it says, of the 5th of August, that's the date of the contract, the seller, Galina, there is a power of attorney of the 14th of June, and that shows that the power of attorney was issued on the 14th of June. So the seller has gotten it on the basis of a power of attorney. Well, the seller sold it on the basis of a power of attorney. So this is actually written in the sales and purchase agreement. What about the date again? 14 June 2006. The seller, on the basis of the power of attorney number of 14 June 2017, actually, sorry, 2017, and there is a surname Brahunets. Now we'll continue the line of questioning regarding these three cars, the three cars. Out of the written communication with the Commission, well, in the written communication, you were asked about the source of funds of your mother, about how she afforded buying these cars. Given that, according to the information gathered by the Commission, between 2008 and 2022, your mother has had a total income of 255,209 lei. That is about 13,500 euros. And therefore, there will certainly be questions regarding the source of funds for buying these three cars. And each of these cars is quite expensive, actually. In your answers, you've named a few sources of income, several of them, and specifically until the procurement of the first car. So with regards to these sources, I would like to ask you a couple of questions to sort things out and to clarify what doesn't seem to be quite clear. You've stated that in 1998, 1999, your mother has sold a garage for $2,500. The Commission was not able to find this garage with a cadastre. So we'd appreciate it if you could provide some clarifications. Anything there is, any piece of evidence, any proof that could confirm that such a garage actually existed and that your mother sold it. Thank you. Well, this garage certainly existed. I remember when I was a student back in the day, when I was a child, there was this garage in Soroka. I know where it is, but I don't know how come it wasn't possible for you to find it with a cadastre. It is likely there was a garage cooperative, but I'm not sure there was certainly a sales and purchase agreement that's a 100% certainty that it was owned by her, and she can confirm that, and that garage was sold. Though I can't understand. Well, if you say that there's a sale and purchase agreement, then we will have a follow-up question for you afterwards. But I would like just to make sure that I got it right. Do you claim that your mother, back in 1998, 1999, when she got that amount, do you mean that she kept that amount until 2014? Well, I don't claim that she's kept that amount over all of these years. Even the financial dynamics, I've actually not kept a close eye on the financial situation of my mother. I would like to, well, if you have some other questions regarding the sources, I would like, in conclusion, to make a short presentation of the information, it's a description as to where my mother had the funds. So my mother used to work for more than 25 years as a chief accountant in a very large enterprise.
Right now, do you want to just have him confine his answers to your questions?
No, he can explain
Okay.
this one, I suggest.
All right.
I will try to be brief. So she's worked in an enterprise that was buying grains from Soroka, the north of the country, flourished, the enterprise was buying grains, and then she was there, the chief accountant. So she had some properties, a garage, we had a cottage, and some other properties that she has bought during while she has worked, and she had savings as well. And for a long period of time, my mother, well, given the times back then, she's also engaged in some business. She was bringing some commodities from Poland, Romania, so she had savings of her own. Even this car, the Vaz 2108, which was owned by me, even that car was purchased immediately after I've graduated from university, and that was bought with money of my mother. She's always had money. Actually, even now, working as an accountant, she has some business, some activity. I'm not asking her about the source of her money, but she certainly has money. And another source that you've referred to, there's a debt following a writ of enforcement of 2014. The amount was 7,700 euros. And the Commission has managed to obtain some information, though it was obtained a day ago, if I'm not mistaken. So we will share that piece of information with you. That was the information from the Bailiffs Union. We received confirmation of the fact that actually only the amount of 1,090 euros was actually returned only as late as in 2023. We will address that in writing with you, and we'll give you the opportunity to clarify that situation, to say whether you agree or disagree with that information. I have actually too asked about that amount, and I was told the following. There was spouses who were the debtors, wife and husband, and they had divorced at a later point in time. The wife left the country, she went abroad, so she's not here. And in order to avoid having any problem whatsoever, it's on the basis of this writ of enforcement that she transferred over that amount to my mother. She was assisted in that regard by my sister, who is a lawyer. And as regards that woman as a debtor, they gave up the enforcement of the decision. So as far as she is concerned, they reached an agreement. Now, I just relay to you what my mother told me. They reached an agreement that she would pay this entire amount of 7,000, but because she had some issues with her husband because of the divorce, for the bailiff to be able to continue the proceedings against the husband, and for the money then to be transferred back. When she'd come back to Moldova, my mother would transfer over that money to her. So she's cleared that amount. And I imagine that the Bailiffs Union informed you that there's no issue against that woman, and they gave up on the proceedings. That's what my sister and mother told me. There are no issues with that woman. Nothing is expected of her. Another source that you've indicated is the amount of $8,000 obtained by your mother from the sale of some jewelry, one piece or several pieces of jewelry. What is that about? Can you explain? It's very hard to explain what you don't know, and I don't know the very details of that. In broad lines, when I've sought this information, when I asked about it, my mother explained that back in the zeros, in 2000, around that year when she's moved to Chisinau, well, I don't want to provide too many details, to disclose too many details, but there was an intention, an idea to have a jewelry business, to buy and sell jewelry. And if you remember, back then there was a famous place near the store called Aureola. Everybody was selling jewelries there. So this is a reality. I can't hide it. So that was an idea for my mother to set up a business in this field and buying and selling jewelry. So she had bought the jewelry back in the 80s or the 90s, so many years ago she had bought it. And it was supposed to be a capital, an investment, something to tap into and to set up this business, jewelry business, to sell and buy jewelry. So that was the idea. That was just the beginning. But then that was sold to a person who was actually working in this field altogether. I think even her name was Ala. I remember that person, I've met that person. And, well, to provide a little bit more detail, well, as for the reason why my mother gave up on that, because that person, I mean, everybody was under there was somebody who was killed in Chocana, and she, Ala, and her grandchild, they were killed inside of their home. So that's my mother decided to give up on this business because it was a dangerous business to be in. It was profitable, you could make a lot out of it, but it was dangerous to engage in it. So, Mr. Pîrlii, since this was supposed to be a business, you perhaps have some documentation. No, that's the whole idea. It's just they did not set it up officially yet, but they just sold some jewelry. So your mother sold jewelry worth $8,000. Yes, she said, well, around that amount. It could have been even more than that. It could have been even more than that amount because there was Russian gold that she was selling. So jewelry made of Russian gold. And from back in the years, I don't know when, but when did she buy it and how and when? Back in the 60s and the 70s, or in the 70s, when she was working. I don't know where she got it from or she bought it from. Back in the day, things were working a little bit differently. But in what year? If you can be, well, I think I put that down in my answers. But now, going again back to what she told me, can you tell me what question that was so that I can refresh my memory? There was annex to round 1, question 6 or 5.
Question number 6, round 1. Yes, let me check. I think this is the one. Have you found it? Round 1, question 6 is about the National Institute for Justice. I think this is something different. Round 1, question 6. Can you check the 5th one? No. The 5th one is about the declaration for 2011. Just a moment. It is not in the questions, maybe in the annexes that you submitted? The annexes were the declarations from the person, so I asked them to explain. But I cannot comment on this. I don't remember. I just know that I asked about the source, and she said a source for the money was this. Can someone confirm this? Yes, my husband, well, the husband of that person who is still alive can confirm this. I mean this fact. I see. Thank you. We will ask for clarifications if it's not clear enough. Another source that you indicated was the sale of an apartment in Soroca in 2020 for €25,000. According to the data that the Commission has, this apartment was sold for 6,500 Moldovan lei. This means €3,000. How can you confirm the price of €25,000? I was not involved in the sale of this apartment. The buyer was a person who was abroad in Italy, and the apartment was bought for his son. And I'm coming back. The real price of an apartment at that period was the one that I indicated in my statement. This was the price that was received by my mother from the person. And again, in the contract, we have the price that you mentioned, because this was the price agreed by the parties. This was not an agreement that I concluded. We did not have any gains from this sale, but I know that the amount was more than €20,000. Regarding to the incomes of your mother, you explained in question 3, round 2.
Câți metri pătrați avea apartamentul?
How many square meters did it have? Do you remember? The one in Soroka? Less than 60. I don't remember. This is just what I remember.
Vreau să vă spun că apartamentul
I would like to mention that this apartment was extended with the balcony, so somehow the kitchen included the living room. Actually, it was 3 rooms plus the balcony from the sleeping room. So it was quite a good apartment.
de fapt a fost intenția acest apartament, mama a făcut cumpărături mai înainte.
My mother had buyers for this apartment even before because she was living in Chișinău already. And I'm coming back. This apartment was never rented out for the same reason, so that the persons living there would not spoil the renovation works that were carried out there.
Am înțeles. Și tot în
I understand. And also in 2020, you mentioned information to the commission stating that your mother
lot.
sold a plot of land. It was the cottage, so the villa, yes, for 1,000 euro. In the contract, we have 633 lei, approximately 30 euro. It's the same story, it's the same answer. The real price was the one that was declared. Can you explain why both properties had different prices indicated in the contracts? That was the reality, because in the contracts the buyer and seller indicated the lower prices. Why was that? I don't know. I never did so. Your mother was the buyer, seller. I'm sorry, yes, seller. So she should have paid taxes for income. Probably yes, so I admit that it is a possibility. So this was not a violation, that was a reality. Everyone had to pay this capital gain tax. I agree with you and I support this statement. I was not involved. When I investigate such situations, I proceed in a different manner. But here I did not have any knowledge about this. It turns out that we need to answer for someone else's actions. It's not about answering for someone else's actions. We are asking these questions because you and your wife are the beneficiaries of the 3 cars, because you are using them fully, and we have the lease for you, loan for use contracts. The cars were used and then given back. If you have some gains, this is one situation, but we just used them and we gave them back to the owner when they decided to sell them. That was the situation. The only benefit that was that we used them. For this, we incurred expenses, so with the insurance, with the road taxes, and so on.
Oamenii care nu au părinți care îți dau
People who don't have parents giving them cars for free are renting cars, so this is a benefit. So let's recap on this topic, and I would like to clarify. Your mother does not have a driver's license, never had one. Why did she need these 3 cars? The first one, not all 3. She needed the first one. That was an investment, and then she bought this car. It was something because there was an offer, a good offer, and this is why she accepted it. This was in order to have a gain based on the sale, and this was obtained in the end. This gain of 1,000 euro. Afterwards, the funds were invested in a second car, and after that in the 3rd car, and the money went to the LLC of the son-in-law, and the car is the property of the mother. She intends to sell it, and I guarantee that she will sell it, and we will have no objections to that.
Așa cum este vorba de cifre,
Since we are discussing about figures,
declarațiile de astăzi,
and based on today's declarations, some figures still need to be confirmed,
Comisia va reveni
the Commission will come back with a question on the sources of income of the mother for the figures and for the sources of income for your father-in-law, for the apartment, and for the Škoda. Is that okay? Yes. Would you like to add anything to these two topics? No. Maybe there's something that I left out, but in the round of questions, I tried to explain at each point and to bring declarations, contracts, and I put in the due diligence to present the necessary information to the Commission. And I'm sorry that we weren't able to clarify this, but this is the reality.
Does anyone want to ask anything on this too? Shall I move on? Saskia?
Yes, just you had mentioned earlier that your mother works as an accountant.
A lucrat anterior, deci
She used to work as an accountant. She worked until the 2000s as an accountant in a big company that was purchasing and selling or processing grains, wheat, and so on. This is a regional company that works, is active in the north, in Soroca. She was the accountant there. She worked there she worked as an accountant for 25 years.
Does she continue to do any accountancy work, or did she in the last 20 years?
Deci, ultimii 20, după urmarea întreprinderii respective, a intrat în
After, at some point, that company was privatized. So, in the 2000s, this company entered in the procedure of insolvency, and she left. She's no longer working in that company. She moved to Chișinău.
Yes, and my question is, she was trained as an accountant, whether she continued to do some work in accountancy.
Nu, în calitate de contabil nu a desfășurat.
No, as an accountant, she did not work anymore.
Does she handle accountancy issues for family members?
Doar la nivel de consultanță.
Just in terms of consultancy, not officially. She would consult the son-in-law, Alexander. So she gives advice to him. He has an accountant, but the aspects related to accountancy have evolved a lot. This is why the knowledge she used to have is not enough currently based on the progress that has taken place. Just from an analytical or statistical point of view, she could offer assistance to her son-in-law, Alexandru, because he has a company that is working in the agricultural sector.
This is the son-in-law that helped her with the purchase of the cars? The same son-in-law?
Da, exact. Da.
Yes, exactly.
Altul nu are.
She doesn't have any other son-in-law.
Trecem la următorul subiect și anume
We'll move on to the next topic.
diferența dintre
The difference between the incomes and expenses for 2008.
informații
According to the information of the Commission, in 2008, you and your wife had a total income of 69,427 lei. These are the figures that you received in the round of written questions.
nivelul mediu de consum pentru
the medium consumption expenditure for population calculated by the National Bureau of Statistics for 2008 for a family of 4, as you were at the moment, was 49,464 lei. Also, in 2008, you purchased Mercedes 350D, model year 1995. And according to your answer, you paid 70,000 lei for this Mercedes. In the same time, in the 2013 annual declaration, you mentioned you paid 130,000 lei. So if we were to calculate all the expenses for 2008, you spent 190,464 or 179,464 if we add the 70,000 or 60,000 difference for the car. So you exceeded the level of expenditure by 50,000 or 110,000. In the written communication with the Commission around to question 1, you disagree with the method of calculation of the medium consumption expenditures and indicated that 90% of the food items, if I understand correctly, yes, that were consumed by your family by 2008 were provided by your parents-in-law. You also mentioned that until 2002 and then until 2003, you owned 2 cars, Renault 19 and Ford Probe, which were sold by you, and the proceeds were kept in cash in order to later, so you used them in order to purchase a car in 2008. And you mentioned that you purchased a Renault for $1,500 and you sold it for more, but you did not mention the exact amount, and that amount was used to purchase the Ford Probe for $2,600, which was then sold for $3,000. Could you explain why you contest the method for calculation, the medium expenses for consumption, the way they are calculated by the National Bureau of Statistics? This was a comment. I didn't contest this. It was like finding, because I looked at the formula for SCP, and I could not calculate it for 2008. So you can calculate it only for the period after 2019. So I did this exercise. And even if we were to say that you have the expenses for 3 children, because we have all the other compartments there, I received 42,000 lei for 2019. And I was thinking, how could we have the CEP so much for 2008? So I used what was in the guideline or the formula in the annex, in the preamble. So this is where there's the reference to the site. We will send you the exact link in order to see the correct calculations performed by the Commission. Could you explain for what amount you purchased the Mercedes in 2008? In the round of questions, I explained the difference between and said why in 2012 I mentioned 70,000 and why in 2013 130. First of all, we were in the beginning. Nobody knew how to fill in those declarations. There was no guideline, no assistance. Everyone did it in a chaotical way. But we were doing our best to mention the goods in our possession. and we didn't have the assessments. This is why I mentioned the 70,000 in the declaration for 2012. Even the VAS was indicated with 18,000. And if you look at the declaration for 2013, I then doubled the amounts. I did this because all my colleagues said, let's add higher prices. So I don't know how to explain. We didn't know how to declare this in the correct way, but they were declared, and it was an error. To be honest, I discussed with the late head of the institution that is now the equivalent of and I think that you are discussing about verbal explanations. Yes, there were no guidelines. If I remember, in our first training was after 2017. Then we had regulations and other guidelines that we had and we could use. Based on your statement, so the Commission did not check these years, but because you indicated them, I want to clarify. The two cars that you purchased in 2002 and 2003, you mentioned that both were sold for higher amounts. Yes, I remember because I sold them. For this, I can confirm. The Renault was purchased by myself when I was working in the prosecutor's office in Orhei. It was purchased with the support of my mother, from what I remember. It was purchased from an acquaintance, a close one, who is now living in Belgium. He's left the country since the 90s. He came home with this car. It wasn't something extraordinary. It was a small car, and I needed to move around. I identified this car, and the person intended to sell it. And due to our relationship, he trusted me, and he decided to sell me this car, probably for $1,000 or 1,000 euro. We had the contract, an official one, and then I sold this car, and I purchased the Ford Proba. And 1 year later, I sold it also, somewhere at the end of 2004. I asked this information from the Public Services Agency because I wanted to obtain the documents. They said they only can confirm that I own these cars. So I sold them for the one for $3,000. So I had this money. So we had some sources. And I think that this difference of 50,000. So let's say that hypothetically this difference is at that moment 3,000 according to the exchange rate for the 1st of March or 1st of May for 2003. This was 43,200. And you had this money in cash since 2003 until 2008. I don't say this is the amount. We took a part of it. We put back a part of it. We always try to have money in the house. And all what is related to the finance is managed by my wife. She's like the bank of the house. And I know exactly that we had this amount, and this money was not used to purchase other goods. Since 2003 until 2008, did you own any other cars? No. No, after the Ford, I bought the Mercedes. Do you have anything else to add on this topic? No? I would like to make a comment. You asked whether I had another car. Since I sold Ford Proba in 2003 until I purchased the Mercedes, I used the car of my brother-in-law, Alexandru. So I'd like you to understand the relationships in our family. I see. The next topic is on the pending case on the protocol from the NIA. According to the information received from the National Authority for Integrity, you submitted the declaration for 2022 on the 26th of October 2023, and the deadline was in March, and you were sanctioned with a fine of 3,000 lei for not submitting the declaration or for late submission of the declaration. You had a claim on this, and now the case is being analyzed by the court. You mentioned about the pending case both in the ethics questionnaire and in the written communication with the Commission. And you mentioned that you actually submitted the annual electronic declaration on the 29th of March 2023. You have the electronic copy of the declaration, and that you encountered technical difficulties on the date of submission, but with the help of the colleagues, you overcame this and you managed to get to the stage of signing the declaration. And since the electronic system showed you no errors, you were convinced that you had submitted the annual declaration. Is this summary accurate? Would you like to add anything on this topic? I would like to mention that from 2012 and with the exception of 2023, I have submitted all declarations on time and using the available data. In this context, I would like to mention that even if we were to admit, I think in the first round we were informed about the pre-vetting procedure, and I had the declaration from my computer, so it was kept there. So when I filled in that declaration, and later the one that I presented in October have the same data, it doesn't differ from the one in 2022 either. If you take a look, with the exception of the fact that the amounts for the incomes from my salaries, my wife's salary and my salary were increased. Otherwise, the declarations are identical. And I tried to persuade the inspector from the NIA that this was not on purpose, and my colleagues were also amazed to hear about that. When I was informed, I could not believe this. This is why I contested this, and we wanted to present the evidence, the witnesses that were present there that day. This was an involuntary error. Thank you. Thank you. One last question, and you don't need to disclose personal data in order to clarify. I want to clarify that we understood correctly. The Commission received information that against you a criminal complaint was submitted, and the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office analyzed that complaint, but they did not start criminal proceeding. Could you briefly explain this case and confirm whether we have the correct information that the criminal investigation was not started, it was just a complaint, and the start of the proceeding was refused? So in the first round, question 29 was about this fact. I would like to mention that I really did not meet that person. And when I was heard by the prosecutors from the Anti-Corruption Prosecutors Office, it was mentioned that my son, Nicolae, was in a car accident, which is a nonsense because my son was never in a car accident. He never was hurt by these citizens, so I didn't understand what this was about, and I didn't want to contact the person. So I asked my colleagues to be objective and to check the facts, but I know that I had no relation with that person. I don't know why he mentioned me. Maybe it was a coincidence. And I really had no case that I analyzed regarding this person. Maybe there was a complaint or another investigation that touched upon their interest. And somehow it was mentioned that my claims against the person were resulting after the car accident when where my son was involved. I don't know about my child having had any such trauma. I mean the older son, Nicolae. And from what you know, you have no relation with road crimes. No. When in my activity, I worked in the General Prosecutor's Office since 2001 in the area of financial and economic crimes and environmental crimes. So this is what I work on. It is not related to organized crime or road accidents or other aspects.
Thank you. If I may ask you a follow-up question regarding this case. Are you aware of what this ended with, what the case ended with? Were there any other appeals or challenges by the complainant? Were there other actions undertaken to challenge the decision that your colleagues took not to initiate criminal investigation? At that time, I did provide explanations. There was an assigned prosecutor, and I've explained to the prosecutor the situation, but I didn't know there was a criminal investigation or a criminal case at all, so I did not look into the context of that. I knew there were some complaints. They had also come to the council, and afterwards, where things went, I didn't know. I did not even look into that because I knew that had nothing to do with me. But this decision, I sought from the Office of the Prosecutor General in the context of the questions in round one. So that's why I got it and then sent it to you. It was for the first time that I saw the contents of that document. So there was no challenges against the order that was issued. Considering that the complainant, petitioner, has actually alleged, according to your statements, well, you said that you didn't even know him, but he is actually referred to some data related to your family members, as in your son having been involved in a car accident. Did you not try to go the legal way to actually sue that person for false allegations? Well, obtaining information regarding family members, that's very easy to do. If you go to social media, on my Facebook account, I have pictures of my son since he was a very young child. That's not a problem. But then when you see that this action is somewhat, they're pursuing something, that's something else. But that was not, he was not reporting me. That was rather like a complaint. It was not a denouncement. It was not a report. He was not reporting me that would have entailed some accountability. But that was just a mere complaint on the basis of which that investigation was initiated. So that's why I thought I didn't have the time to deal with it. Thank you. No other questions, Chairperson?
Just poll the commission as to whether anyone has any more questions. Armontes.
Yes. My question is regarding already mentioned criminal proceedings. So the order for refusal to initiate the criminal investigation regarding you was adopted by Prosecutor of Anti-Corruption Prosecutor Office, and you already submitted a copy of this decision. My question is, did you have opportunity to look to all documents, all material that was gathered, collected by the prosecution office?
Nu, eu am văzut.
No.
Deci nu a fost necesitate.
No, there was no need for me to do that. I would like to reiterate that. The fact that there was a criminal proceeding about these things, I've only found out from the Commission now. I knew there was some investigation with the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office that they've initiated on the basis of that complaint. And that's why there was the Anti-Corruption Prosecutors. Well, he came to me so seeking information, explanations. I provided the explanation. Only later I found out that there was a criminal case opened, and then that decision was taken on the basis of that, with regards to that, rather. So now, having looked at the fact that there are different complaints against prosecutors, when there's some disagreement with the actions of the prosecutors, for instance. So when that is the case, we try to look at that through the lens of criminal proceedings to be able to issue a decision. But that person, as far as I can remember, that was a mere complaint. That was not a denouncement. I was not being reported. It was just communicating the facts regarding a case. So that's why I did not really pay attention to it. I thought it was legal nihilism.
Dar hotărârea este în vigoare.
But there is a decision on the case, and it is valid to this day.
Okay, one last. So, Mr. Pîrlii, thank you for the time you've given us this morning, and I give you an opportunity to make a closing statement to the Commission.
Honorable members of the Commission, I would like to say that, indeed, out of what my colleagues said too, this is a complicated endeavor, and today I've seen it for myself. I went through this experience, through this process, and I would like to. You see, I have some ideas in my mind, but still I'm overwhelmed by nervousness. I am very grateful, and I have the highest level of appreciation for the effort made by the staff of the Commission. They've performed a very thorough analysis, a very thorough evaluation of my candidacy. I too came to find out about a lot of details with your support and with the support of the Secretariat of the Commission. I would like to say that indeed this activity was very sophisticated, extremely sophisticated. It required of me taking a lot of actions. I would like to specifically mention that a lot of people, I had to bother a lot of people. I was asking for documentation, so I did my best to be as open, as transparent as I could. So everybody I had ever had any tangency with to provide answers to the questions I asked the Commission, and I talked to all of them. And I would like to thank especially my parents. You've noticed from those questions that I've received a lot of support throughout my career from my parents. And it was impossible to be able to give your all to your work without having had the support, someone to be there to have your back. So I'd like to show my appreciation to my family, to my wife. They were there to support me every time that I needed their help. Even now, when I was gathering the documentation, we even had some fights here and there, and there were situations where we had discussions. And it's not only now, not only for the sake of this evaluation, but actually I have been supported throughout my entire career as a prosecutor. That's 25 years of work. On the 21st of July, I would turn 25 years as a prosecutor. I would like to say that the current realities for prosecutors, they are different than the realities that I began my prosecutor career in back in 1999. The salary was $100, and even that would be delayed. And Moldova was different 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And now Moldova is a much more beautiful country, much more prosperous country. But it is with the support of my parents, it is with the support of my family that I was able to do my job as a prosecutor with dignity. Over these time span, I have never been disciplined. There was only one procedure that was initiated, but the facts were not confirmed. There was the initiative of some MPs that action was initiated against me. But I was never sanctioned, and I have never committed anything that would compromise me. And to this day, day, even regarding or outside the NIA case. I never had any sanction, not even a car traffic or a road traffic violation. I received incentives for a number of time from the Office of the Prosecutor General. So over these years, there were 8 such instances, incentives granted to me, and I was also appreciated by other institutions as well, central level authorities such as ministries. And I would like to also note in this regard that for me, when it comes a benchmark for the profession of the prosecutor was my father-in-law. For 37 years, he has worked as a prosecutor and chief prosecutor as well, so he was the example for me to follow. And it is thanks to his reputation, or due to his reputation, his reputation was impeccable. So he served as a model, as an example for me to follow. And I was able to see what it looks like when you are respected, even when you leave office, and how other prosecutors respect you. So I always tried to follow his example and to also have the same, to also earn the same attitude from the society, from the family, to earn the same attitude that he had. So I think I did not let him down. I did not let down the family, I believe. I have actually had to neglect somewhat my family, and now I have to admit that I might have not seen my children growing up. I have never been to school. I would sometimes even ask what date my son was born on. So the appreciation towards my work, or the appreciation that my colleagues in the prosecutor's office have for my work, was expressed by the fact that I was chosen to be, and I still work, as the deputy chair of the Association of Trade Unions of Prosecutors. So that's a country-level association. I am the member of the board of, a permanent member of the board of the Association of Prosecutors of Moldova. And at the last General Assembly of the Prosecutors, I have had the honor to be appointed by the colleagues by an absolute majority as chairperson of that General Assembly, at which the current members of the SCP were elected. So certainly, honorable members of the Commission, I am aware of the fact that I have had some inadvertent omissions or mistakes, but these omissions, they happened because of insufficiency of time. I've always had insufficient time. It is particularly because I was being involved in investigating crimes. I was taking care of very complicated investigations in high-profile cases, and I was always devoted to my work. Even these loan-for-use agreements, to me, they were just a formality. I have never regarded them, never even thought that there would be some danger related to that, or that there was some risk to that, or that that could look somehow bad for the Pîrlii family. I would like to rather reassure you of my honesty. I answered sincerely to all of the questions raised by the Commission. I am persuaded that your solid experience will support a professional and fair evaluation of my candidacy. So, honorable members of the Commission, I would like to wish you the best of luck in the future. I understand, I realize that there is a long way for you to go in the future too. So I wish you also in this context to have the best of health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We thank you for your participation today at the evaluation process and at the hearing. And the Commission will now deliberate on the matter and issue a decision at the earliest date possible. So I close the hearing. It's now closed. Thank you.